My dear friends, it's me Nasrin from Agile Research team. If you use the first version of the GCM, it refers to a statistical downscaling GCM tool with the first version, the version 1.0. You remember that at the previous version, we can downscale GCM models and with limitations, I mean the items. But since different researchers asked us to develop that tool with different icons, with the different stations and the other things, so Agile Research team decided to develop the first version to this new one. It means statistical downscaling GCM with version 2.0. Okay. In this version, you can see different tabs here, such as the station data, graded data, evaluation step, bias correction method, distributions. That is really wonderful for check different distributions of your variables, and as well data contour. Okay, I'll start with the first point, station data. Okay. First of all, in this screen, you should click Fill List by File. Before you should create your file, as I show here to you. For example, this one, you can load Excel file as XLSX format, or maybe in CSV or text file. Okay, when you click this browse your file, you can see different sheets of your file. So I click this one because I intend to load different station and downscale of, for example, a temperature variable from different station and in a time, all of them in one process. So I click this one, station list, and as well click name of the station for the header of this column, latitude for latitude items, and as a longitude for longitude items. Another point for this screen that you can see here, the conversion tab or maybe panel, we have three items here: non, UTM, and as well in minute or second format, in decimal format. As you can see here, my data is in a starter format, so I can click none. If my data, for example, or your data in UTM, latitude or longitude, you can select this icon. Or if your geographic data would be in minutes and seconds, you should click this icon. But this is a standard format, so I just click none. Okay, I don't need two altitude data, so as you can see here, I select these items for this data. Okay, so the features of my stations, the latitude and longitude, are loaded here. So I click load data. Okay, for this panel, you can see different things related to the selected variable that you want to downscale that data. But in this step, we need to load the observation data. So I click select data file. I click input data as well. Click open. So for the first item, I should select my intent sheets. In this sample, I want to downscaling the average temperature in monthly format. So my input data should be in monthly format. So I click T average, the temperature average, and as well, you can see the other options here, such as related to, for example, here, as you can see, first row is header. Yes, there is the header. And as well, since my data is in monthly, so I should click is monthly data. If your sample would be on, for example, in the scale of daily data, you don't need to mark this icon. Okay, so as we can see in this example, my year, my date in simple format. So as you can see here, I can select this one, the default one. If your data should be in another format, you can search the Intel format and select that one, but my sample is like this. Okay, so we put another option, autofill column header. If you can click this one, if you click this one, immediately you can see the name of the header on the top of the column, each column. But for the date, you can click date as the header of this column. Okay, everything is down here, but be careful that in your input file, I mean that in your Excel file, the name of this station should be correct format. I mean that you don't make a mistake, for example, for the name of a station with this one and the another sheet of the other headers. I mean that the name of these stations in each sheet should be the same. Be careful about this point. Okay, everything is now finished, and the end I should click load station data. Okay, in some you can see another tip message here, as you can see here. It related to the rest of rows at the end of input Excel file. So since we have 365 days with the header as another further rows, so we don't need two other rows. So and for this one we don't have any mistake, or maybe fill as blank cell, I mean that, so I can click cancel. But maybe in another format, when you want to use daily data, maybe you should blank data in your cells, and in this version of Microsoft STGCM tool, we put an improvement item here that it can fill the blank cells as average method. So here with this column, since my data in monthly, so the further rows I don't need to the further cells, so I click cancel here. Okay, you can see this message, loading is completed, and click OK, and this one is finished. Okay, for the gridded data set, we should continue another tab for the second option. We have different tabs here. In this format of STGCM tool, we improve this format for easiest process, because you can follow the process in easy way. The first one is related to historical data. If you remember in the previous step, I mean the station data, you download and loaded the input file as observation period. But in this tab, we need to load historical data. So I click select data from intent file. I have different samples here, but in this sample I want to show the monthly data. In this version of statistical downscaling tool, STGCM tool, we improved this tool for every data that you can imagine. For example, Cortex data, CMIP6 data, CMIP5 data, as well gridded data set, everything that you can imagine. In this sample, we use a model from CanESM5 from CMIP6 under SSP scenarios. For the first sample, for the first step, I should click historical data. So as you can see here, it is related to average temperature. So in monthly format, you can see in the header of the name monthly and the name of the model, and related to historical data. You can see all of them in the title of the file. It is started from, for example, 18015 up to 2014. It is related to CMIP6 version of models, especially for CanESM5, and in monthly format. For average temperature, I select it and click open. Okay, when you load the historical data, you see this message, your file is selected. I click OK. I want to review these different items here. Our variable was temperature, and there are different features, there are different attributes here as time, latitude, longitude, time units, and the start of the day, the date of that file, and the time calendar that you can see here. So in Cortex format of data, you can see that if you use those format of data, Cortex data, for latitude, you should see here RLAT, and for longitude, you would see here RLON. But it depends on your samples and your models. But for CMIP6 models, I can exactly view this item, latitude lat, and for longitude lon, and the other things. Okay, so for the selected data, if you click here, you can see the model that you loaded previously and justice. For the second panel, you should write the variable name. If you can't remember the variable name, especially similar with the name of the model, you can click here and see the name, TAS. For easier pronunciation, I call it TAS, so I can write it here, TAS, for the variable name. Be careful, because the name that should you write it here, it should be the same as the model, in the model, like this one, TAS. Okay, so it is finished, and you can click load historical data. But in this step, I should tell you that it's time consuming, because it depends on the ability of your systems. When your data in a monster format, you can see the progress bar is started immediately after you click load historical data. But when your data is in, for example, daily format, it depends on your system RAM, the memory of your system. So it may be in the daily format of data. This process is consuming. You need more time, for example, around 10 minutes, or maybe less than 10 minutes, or maybe more than that. So don't worry about these steps. It depends on the model, your system ability, and the other things. But in the monster format, you can see the process is really short, and you can, as soon as possible, you see the data, the process is done. Okay, historical data is loaded. I click OK, and that's finished. So the historical data was loaded in the system and the STGCM tool, and we should go to another panel for the future data. You know, in CMIP6 data, as you know, the scenarios would be in with name of SSP. Okay, we click select the data file, and you should browse your intent file. Here I want to use, since I use CanESM5, so I should select CanESM5 in SSP scenarios for the future. In the future data, as you can see here, it is started from 2015 up to 2100. So I click this one. If, for example, your models have different files, 1, 2, or 5, or maybe further than this, you can select all of them here. For example, if your future file have different, split it to different files. But in CanESM5, I have just one file for the future data. So I click it here, I select it and click open. Your file is selected, okay? As the previous one, you can see the another items like this one that I told you before. For the variable as well, it is similar, TAS, and I click load the future data here. After I click it, the bar is started to fill. But as I told you before, it depends on different items such as your ability of your system, the capacity of future data that you select, and the other things. But you can see this bar is filled step by step and not very, you need not more time. Okay, you can click OK. Another important panel related to unit converter. You know, since our data is temperature, so I should check my data. If your input file, the first file as an observation file, if your temperature isn't, for example, centigrade, as you know, CMIP6, CMIP5, and the other models, all of them in kelvins. So I should click this one to make conversion between Kelvin and centigrade Celsius. But if your data, for example, related to, for example, precipitation, rainfall data, and CMIP6, correct, CMIP5, graded data set, some of them are in flux format of data. So you should make conversion between your input data as observation data and as well for future data and historical data. But in this sample, my data is related to temperature, so I should click the first item. If my data, for example, in precipitation or rainfall, I should click the second one. Okay, the another items such as multiply, plus, minus, we put it here for make conversion if you want to convert your data to another format. And as well, one of the important tips here related to correction factors. I want to review some of the tips related to statistical downscaling methods. You know, some of the researchers believe that, for example, delta method, a scaling method, or quantile map method, quantile map method, all of them said that, some of them said that these are related to statistical downscaling. But the others said no, these are related to bias correction methods. By the way, for example, if I want to show some of the papers, in my paper I refer to different papers that they said a statistical method, we can say that a quantile map, delta method, like this sample. All of them are related to a statistical downscaling method, such as Kang et al. 2006 in this journal. You can see that Kang et al. Said that these methods related to a statistical. But in several papers you can see these methods are not statistical and they called correction methods or maybe bias correction methods. By the way, both of them, in my opinion, are statistical downscaling methods. So, in these methods, you should select two items, additive or maybe multiplicative. It depends on your variables. We put here a description for your direction. Okay, when you select second, third, or fourth for rainfall, radiation data, and the others that you can find them in journals and IPCC website and the others, you should select multiplicative format. But if you want to select the first item as temperature and the others, you should select additive. And since my data is related to temperature, I should select additive for correction factor. It is so important for you to select this, or maybe in related to your loaded data. Okay, everything is finished here. I click save setting and I see here this has been saved. Okay, up to now we loaded our observation data, historical data, and as well future for downscaling data. The third option here is related to evaluation process. You know, we should check the efficiency criteria here, that is it good, this method is good, or can we use delta method for this model, or quantile map, or EQM. We can select everything and check the the result of efficiency criteria, and at the end we can say that okay, the delta is the best, the EQM is the best one, or maybe QM is the best one. It depends on your model and your observation data and historical data. Okay, for this panel, for evaluation downscaling, we have 3 period of data. This station data is related to your observation data. My data is started from 1986 up to 2016, and for historical and as well for the period I should select, as you can see here, this one for the start at the end. It's better that these are the same. The start at the end of the time should be the same, because we can say that we want to see that which method is good for our pairs of data in evaluation process. Okay, I limit this one up to 2014 because my historical data end period like 2014, and as well it is limited to 1986. It should be limited, so I find it here 1986. Okay, and for the third one 1986, like this one. Okay, everything is done. I started to with delta method. I select it, and everything is done. So I click down the scale, and you can see very easy your data succeeded this process and data downscaled. Okay, and if you want to view your data and save them in, for example, in different format, you can click this icon. If you want to send the comparison, you should select this one and say okay. And in this format, for example, if I click the name of the station, for example this one, because as you remember, I downscaled all this station in one process. This is very fascinating here. So for example, for medicine station, I click it, the medicine for delta method, the MAE like this. Wow, wonderful. You know, since your data is in monthly format, and as well the nature of your data is temperature, so the variable is temperature, and as you know, the difference between your data and 1 decade, 2 decade, or maybe further than this in future, the difference between your observation data and future data in monthly scale is not very large. So it is obvious that your efficiency criteria would be in highest amount, and you can see here, yes, that's correct. All of them is really wonderful. Okay, if you want to see another station, you can click on the name of another station and see all the important efficiency criteria in this table. Also, if you want to save data, you can click this one and save your data in Excel format to capture this data, this result for your report. Another tab, another panel here related to this graph, you can see the Movimba station, and here the name for observation and as well for downscale in evaluation process. Everything is wonderful because you can see the difference between the downscale and as well the observation data is not very large. It's really wonderful. Okay, if you want to see your data, you can click view data and you can see the result of your data. If you want to save every of these items, you can click save the item for saving this result in Excel file. Just this. If you want to click another method, you can click, for example, quantile map and as well downscale, and the data downscale is done, and repeat it again for see the items here in quantile map, and as well this result is really good for quantile map, downscale, and see the others, the rest for the equations, for the results. Okay, if you want to see this icon, click Save Data. You face with this window. In this window, if you don't check mark this item here, you can save all the station result. But if you want, if you click this icon here, you can select, for example, 1 or 2 or maybe every station that you want here. So I select 4 of them, and okay, for the station data, you can save data of stations with this name. If you want to change the name of this EQM station data, you can change it. Since your data is in monthly, you can see that this one is active here. If you want your data in column format or maybe in rows format, you can select them. And for historical data, if you want to see the Excel file of your data for making some, for example, depict some graph, chart, or like this, it's good for saving the data. For example, saving columns, select it, because your data is monthly, so you don't need to select this one. Okay, as well for downscaling data, save downscale data with this name, station data, historical data, and downscale data. Okay, if you want to save the efficiency criteria, you can click this one, and it is end save. Okay, you can make new folder or maybe just, for example, in every source that you want to save them. Okay, I save them and cancel. If you want to check them, go see this one. For example, for the station data, if you click this one, you can see. And for historical, as for historical data with EQM, you can see all of them. My last method would be quantile map, so I can capture all the period related to method in Excel format. You can see all of the stations for the station here and the result for historical data, and also, for example, for this one for efficiency criteria and the other things as I told you before. Okay, good. So for the rest period, you can see that this evaluation process has done. We go to the fourth step with bias correction name. We have different panels here. The first one related to the evaluation, the downscaling period in evaluation downscaling. This start period for station data, as you can see here, and this is for historical period at the end. For a downscaling period, you know, this data related to CMIP6 version of models with SSP scenarios. That model that I selected, CanESM5, the data is started for 2015 up to 2100. I want to limit this one to, for example, for save the time, I want to select, for example, this time for the end of the time. And as I told you before, for the station period and as well the historical period, it is better the both time should be the same. So I do this for the make similarity 1986. Excuse me. Alright, 1986. And for the end, because my data limit to 2014, it should be better. I limit this one to 2014. And for downscale period, it depends on you. For example, you can select 2020 up to this period. It depends on your selections. Okay, especially for downscaling method, I want to start with delta method, and I can select downscale. And the downscale, you can see downscale process has been done here. You know, here you can save your downscale data by click this icon, and you can see this window that if you want to save all your stations, you don't need to assign here. But if you want to select, for example, some of these stations, you can check mark this icon and, for example, select some of these stations like this sample. And also for save downscale data, since your data is in monthly, you can see that it is inactivate. And for example, if you want to show your data in column format, you can save in column item. You can select this one. If you want to change the name, you can also do this and click save in your every place that you want. Okay, we have two other items. The first one related to this panel and the last one for this panel. You know, this box plot that you can see here just for ability to see the trend of your data, the changes of your data. But if you want to maybe make another plot, since we put option here to save your data, you can export this data in every software that you want for every model, such as, for example, Excel or maybe SPSS or every software that you want for making another chart or graphs. So for this one, for example, I want to show you some of these stations for making a graph. And for example, in this one, like this one, okay, draw plots, you can see here this box plot here with this header, the observation data. Also, if you want to save this data, you can click this one and same the similar process at the first item that I showed you before. So as well for prediction period, you can select this icon. If you don't select this button here, you can see all the charts, such this one, for example, all these stations here. If you want to select some of them, you can click some of them and do this, draw box plot, and see the selected stations here. So in this process, you can download all your data with different three methods, downscaling methods here, and see your data can save here. These are the further items that the researcher wants from Themeßl in this improved version of SDGCM. Okay, we put another item here with distributions. We put different distributions that you can check your variables for make some comparison and see different distributions, the trend of your data and the others. So, for example, if I select this, I'm in the station with three options here: use maximum of years, or maybe minimum of years, or in raw data, and check 12 distributions here. When I click this one, I can see different distributions here. If you see here some of the message that if this distribution can't be matched with your data, you can see these items, this message here, this distribution has an error. So this distribution is not good for your data. So you should omit them in your process. So the others is good. For example, this one, if I click setting and open this one, I can see different things here, or maybe in normal format I can see the others. For example, the mean of your my data, as well the median of my data, mode, and the others. And for example, the efficiency criteria, chi-score, or Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, and the others like you can see here. These are different distributions for your data. Also, you can also save them by show some of the graphs here. For example, I want to select some of these stations. For example, this one. First of all, I select one of them, and as well the start of the observation data, and as well for downscale data, If you want to use the observation data, you can click this check mark here, add observation, and see the observation period. And also for downscale period, you can see them. So I want to limit this one up to, for example, 1993 up to 2014 and the last. Okay, for example, I want to use CDF, select distribution. For example, as you remember, some of them are not good for us. For example, I want to select this one, Campbell distribution, with or CDF or PDF. Both of them are different charts that you can use them for draw them and see the data here. This is PDF, and you can see the probability of your data in temperature data in this graph. Okay, if you want to save the CDF data, you can click CDF or PDF data for both of them, for observation and as well for prediction period. Okay, the last item is related to data counter. In data counter, we put an ability here to, for example, count some of the days, some of the months, or for example, some of the months is less than a value. For example, 25 value less than this. If you want to select, for example, some of the months is less than 25 centigrades. Or maybe time scale if you want to count for a year. For example, if you want to select some of the years with different items between, for example, some of the values, you can select this data counter in this item. And as previous, if you don't select this count should be applied for all your stations. If you want to select some of these stations, or maybe one or two, you can click this one and select your internet station for make this counter process. For example, like this one. After I click count, I can see all the years that the data less than 25 kelvins here for your data. You can see this then. And if I want to, for example, more than a value, for example 30, I can see the temperature more than this one for temperature, and as well count, and I can see like this. For example, for 2020, I don't have any like this one, as you can see here. If you want to save them, you can save this data to a file, to an Excel file. If you want to apply, for example, between two variables, you know, some of these data is really wonderful for example, crop production, for example, check some of extreme events. Is really wonderful that you have these data for your reports, especially for crop production and as well extreme events. Okay, this is a wonderful tool in my opinion for downscaling your data with bias correction methods. If you want to follow our new tools and especially our different videos, you can go to our website channel, YouTube channel, and subscribe in this channel for know about different videos and different tools, or maybe different free facilities that CMIP6 team do for you. Also, you can see our website here, especially this one for STGCM tool, different question in fact part, frequently asked question, and different items that we try to put them in our website. Thank you very much, and I hope this tool is so applicable for you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.